Members of the Rockford Public Schools board got the opportunity to take lawmakers out to lunch, gathering in the Jefferson High School library for a legislative luncheon. State Senators Steve Settleman and Dave Severson, along with State Rep Dave Vella, spoke with RPS 205 staff this afternoon. Legislators were given a progress report of the district's 5-year facilities master plan, and staff picked the brains of the lawmakers to see how they could or would have created the plan and if they would be doing anything differently. Students were also present and were able to speak with the legislators.
The students are part of our Superintendent Student Advisory Committee. They meet regularly with Dr. Jarrett and talk about issues that they see on a daily basis in their schools.